everybody. We're getting ready to do lesson 9.5 part 2 pre-algebra math. Today 9.5 part 2 is the distance and midpoint formulas. Classwork, you got 24 points here, students. 0 points into your notebook. Students, put your name, date, period, and then due date down here for onliners, homeschoolers. Let's go into 9.5 part 2, page 1. Midpoint. The midpoint of a segment is a point on the segment that is equally distant from the endpoints. So here's the midpoint formula here. Here is an example of a line here. We're trying to find M. How do we find M? Okay, so the coordinates of the midpoint of a segment, so you got coordinate A down here, x1, y1, and then B up here, x2, y2, and then in between we have a line segment there, are the average, the coordinates of the midpoint, which is here, here's your coordinates here for the midpoint, are the average of the endpoints, x coordinates, and the average of the endpoints of the y coordinates. So we add our x coordinates here, x1 plus x2, x1 plus x2, and then that would be over 2 to find the average of that. And then y2, y1, y2, we add those together, y1 plus y2 over 2, and then that will give us our y coordinate here to find the midpoint of a line segment. So our x coordinate here, or rather our y coordinate would be y1 plus y2 over 2. That'd be this coordinate here. Then our x coordinate be x1 plus x2 over 2 will give us our midpoint. So here is our x coordinate, and then here is our y coordinate here. That would be your midpoint of this line segment there. So the algebra for this would be m equals x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2, which is here. So that would be that's the idea behind finding the midpoint of a line segment. So let's try an example here. Finding a midpoint. So find the midpoint M of the segment with endpoints at 3, 8. So 3, 8 would be here. And negative 9, negative 4, which would be over here. Negative 9, negative 4. So here's our line segment here. So how would you find the midpoint of this line segment? Okay, so here's our midpoint formula, x1, x2 over 2, y1, y2 over 2. So now we plug in. We have 3 plus a negative 9 over 2, and then we have 8 plus a negative 4 over 2, and then what does that become? y1, y2, x1, x2, negative 9 for x2. So what does that come out to be? It comes out to be negative 3, this will be negative 3, 3 plus negative 9 be negative 6 over 2, be negative 3, and then 8 plus and negative 4 will be 4 over 2 would be 2. So it will be negative 3, and when x equals negative 3, y equals 2. So it would be right here. Okay, so find the midpoint here. Here's our diagram here. Find the midpoint of FG, line FG. So line FG is right here. Here's FG. Down here, students, this is yours. I'll let you do that. We're gonna do this right now. So what is the midpoint of line segment FG? To find FG, so F is 3, 1. Here's our F here. It's when x equals 3, y equals 1. And then G would be when x equals 1, y equals negative 3. So we have our x's here. 3 plus 1 over 2 would be 2. And then 1 plus a negative 3 would be negative 2 over 2 would be negative 1. So our mid-segment would, the midpoint of FG here, when x equals 2, y equals negative 1. So it would be right here. This would be your midpoint of FG. So when x equals 2, y equals negative 1. Right there. Down here, students, that's you. Okay, let's move on. Page 5. Slope. If points A, which is x1, y1, and B, x2, y2, do not lie on a vertical line, use coordinate notation to write a formula for the slope of the line. So through A and B. So, okay, slope equals difference of y coordinates rise over difference of x coordinates run. So slope is always rise over run. And in this case, y2 minus y1, here's our rise, here's our difference in rise, and then here's our difference in run, x2 minus x1. So let's get into an example of finding slope. So finding slope, find the slope of a line through 3, 7, 3 7's here, then 8, and then negative 3 will be down here. So what is the slope of this line? We're going to use our slope formula now, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now we just plug in. We plug in negative 3 minus 7. Here's our rise here, negative 3 and 7, and then 8 minus 3 is our run. So rise over run. So negative 3 minus 7, what is that? It would be negative 10 over 5. So our slope of this line here would be negative 2. Let's get into an example of that. Find the slope of the line 2, 7 and negative 3, 5. And then students, this is yours down here. I'll let you do that on your own after we do this one up here. So to find the slope of this line here, how do we do that? So first thing here is we have rise over run, 5 minus 7, 5 minus 7, and negative 3 minus 2, negative 3 minus 2. So we have a negative 2 here over a negative 5. When our these cancel, our negatives cancel out, and we end up with a 2 over 5 as our slope for this line here. And this line here, 2, 7, which would be about here, and then negative 3, 5, which would be right about here. So you got a line something like that. It's pretty flat. So anyway, it has a positive slope of 2 over 5. And that is your 9.5 Part 2 Pre-Algebra Math. Animated PowerPoint Math Video at AOL.com. Hit that link for questions or course materials. Thank you very much.